Guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel Programming Knowledge. In today's Microsoft Excel VBA videos, we are going to see what are the different types of errors that one can encounter while writing the Visual Basic code in Microsoft Excel. Now, these errors are something that occur in every programming language. Whenever you are coding, adhering to the rules of any programming language, then being a human, it is very much possible that you make a mistake. And in the programming terms, a mistake is termed as an error. So you are prone to make any kind of error whenever you are writing any code. Now these errors can be of two types. Either these errors can occur due to human mistakes or due to some of the logical or the syntactical errors. So let us take a look at the types of errors that are available to us in the Visual Basic. Now these are universal and may be applicable in other programming languages only, but in this video we are going to see them with respect to the point of reference of the Visual Basic programming language. So let us start. The first error that one can encounter is a runtime error. The next type of error is known as the compilation error. And the third and the last type of error is known as the syntax error. Now, out of these three errors, syntax error is the one that is most frequent. The syntax error occurs whenever there is the mistake of the programmer and the programmer forgets or makes a mistake in the syntax of the programming language. So these errors are basically of one line and can cause the compiler of that particular programming language to confuse itself whenever it is trying to compile that piece of code, because the syntax that the programmer has written is not understood by the compiler. The compilation errors are the ones that occur when the code begins its compilation. It is similar to the syntax error. The major difference is the syntax errors occur only on one line of code, while the compilation errors may occur on multiple lines of code. The third and the last type of errors, that is the runtime errors, are the errors that occur when the code is compiled successfully. That means there is no mistake in the code. The programmer has not done any mistake, has not made any syntactical error or any compilation error, but whatever the logic is written, the logic is not according to the general rules, and the compiler is not able to execute the particular logic, although it's syntactically correct. The examples for a runtime error could be out of range exception and a division by zero errors. So this was all about the errors that you need to understand theoretically, and let's look at them with the help of a practical example. So I'm in my VBA and I'm going to insert a new module and I'm going to rename it as error types, so that I'm able to understand that what is this module going to hold. And let's just create a new sub procedure that's also going to be named as error types, and this is how Visual Basic recognizes that yes, it is a sub procedure, and it would create a macro with the name error type, so that whenever I try to run that macro, I would be able to do that. So first of all, let us understand about the syntax errors, because these are the simplest errors and are the ones that occur more frequently. So suppose I just declare a variable in Visual Basic. So I know to declare a variable I have to use a dim statement, and with the dim keyword I have to provide it with a variable name. So the variable name that I provide over here is I write I. This means that I am declaring a variable as I, but I have not specified its data type, which means that I could be of any data type right now, but if I want to specify its data type, I have to write the keyword as, which we already know. Then I have to specify the data type. Suppose, for example, I forget to write this data type and I simply press enter. Then as soon as I do that, the compiler recognizes it automatically that this is an error because I have not specified any kind of the data type for this particular variable. So the compiler instantly gives me an error, and this is what is known as the compile error. But since this error is occurring only on a single line, so we can refer to it as a syntactical error in this particular case. So I click on OK, and then I specify the data type, such as I want I as an integer. So I have specified I as an integer. Another example of the syntax error is, suppose right now I is an integer and I try to access a string value in I. So I write A B C D without the double quotes, and now I want to print this, or I want to store the value of I in a cell known as B3. I want to store the value of I. So this is my code. I have written this code, and let's run it using F5. Nothing happens. I'm running it. Just click over here. I'm running it, but nothing happens. I'm not getting any output in B3. The reason being, compiler or the Visual Basic compiler actually is not able to recognize this as a valid code. So if I just try to keep it in double quotes and then I try to run it, then what happens is I again get an error, but this type of error is a different error. This type of error is a runtime error. I get an error code on this, which is a runtime error, which I will try to explain later. But many a times when any kind of error occurs, we do not get any message from the compiler itself. That is because usually in the syntax error this happens, that we do not get any message. So that is a syntax error. Okay. Now this was the example of the syntax error. Let us just comment out all this piece of statements. The next type of errors that we are going to look at is a compilation error. So the second type of error is a compilation error. Now when a compilation error occurs, the compilation error also occurs in the similar case of the syntax error. That is whenever there is any kind of a problem in the syntax, or whenever the mistake is of the programmer himself. So whenever this type of error spans through multiple lines instead of a single line, then the error we get is known as the compilation error. So let us take an example. Suppose we are going to write a for loop. Then what happens is I declare a variable like dim I as integer, and then I use a for loop with I equals 1 to 10, and I want to show this value in cell I comma 2, that is in the B column from B1 to B10. I want to show the value of I itself. So this is my loop, and I try to run this. Okay, I have written this code and I try to run this. Then I get a compilation error, that 2 with a message that for without next. And the reason why I have got this error, because I have made a syntactical mistake. We all know that whenever we are writing a for loop, it is mandatory to use the keyword next, because that is what Visual Basic understands. If we just write this thing, we omit the next statement, then Visual Basic does not recognizes this as a valid statement and gives us an error in the form of a compilation error. The reason why this error is not occurring instantaneously, because it is not a syntactical error, it is a compilation error. So if we just write next over it and then we try to run the code, then we get the desired output over here. But that is when the code is correct. So we are not getting any kind of error. So that was the compilation error. And a major difference you must have noticed, that the compilation errors occur when you press this run sign, and the syntactical error do not need to be run to throw out the error. Okay, so that was about the compilation error. Let's start covering just now the third type of error we are having is the runtime error. So let's take a look at the runtime errors. What is a runtime error? Runtime error is the error that occurs whenever the compilation has finished. After the compilation process, the running of the program occurs. So after the compilation process, the errors which are encountered are known as the runtime errors. Now these errors are the ones that do not occur because of the programmer's fault, but usually because of the logical statements or some of the rules of the programming languages or the mathematical rules. A good example of this would be a division by zero error. We know according to mathematics, division by zero is not possible. So if we try to divide any number by zero, then we would get an error that is known as the runtime error. So let's just see it. Suppose in the cell D3, I want to store something as, something as 12 divided by 0. This is what I want to store. So it is a perfectly correct statement. I want to store the quotient of 12 divided by 0. If I try to run it, I will get this code, runtime error, with a error code as 11, and the message that I get is division by 0 telling to me that I cannot divide any number by 0. Now this is not the mistake of the programmer. This statement is perfectly correct. It is correct as per the Visual Basic logic, but it is not correct as per the mathematics logic. To make it correct, I have to replace it by any number, say 6. If I do that and I try to run it, then I get the answer, that is 2. So these types of errors are known as the runtime errors. Another example is, suppose I want to access the color index. Suppose in the cell, say I use the range function on the cell D3, and on this cell I want to use the color index to color its interiors. Okay, dot color index, and I know its limit is still 56, but if I try to write 58 over here, then what happens is I again get an error, that is a runtime error with an error code 9, that subscript is out of range. Again, that is a perfectly valid Visual Basic statement, but again I'm getting an error because the range that I have provided is out of the valid range, that is from 1 to 56. That's why I'm getting this error. So this is the runtime errors, which occurs whenever there is no syntactical error but the logical errors. So that's all for the today's video, in which we learned about the different types of errors in Visual Basic, and thanks for watching.